Hi.
Hi.
It's time to die.
It's time.
I guess you have to be prepared to die.
Time to mute the stream.
Mm.
I cannot listen to the same music as you. For I am on voice call.
Done. Music sad. I was just informing Draven on the Tubbo situation. What state did he go to again? What state did Tubbo go to?
He went to California.
Of course, they always go to California.
Yeah, he's in. I believe he's still in LA or in the area.
Wait, so we did go to the same place as Rambo then?
Well, because Rambo is in the East Coast right now. Because he's doing stuff with like Mr. Beast and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Beast.
A lot of the content creators we like collab with Mr. Beast. I think of Mr. Beast.
Not.
Yeah, I think of Mr. Beast as like a
Well,
cryptid.
he's not collabing with Mr. Beast. He was doing a behind the scenes video of just hanging out behind Mr. Beast's set. He's
so
not in
great.
the actual video.
That's so
He's
great.
just
He's a
messing
whistleblower.
with
He's a
them.
whistleblower.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he's just like, this is how they film a Mr. Beast video, like, or something, or like that. He said that he wasn't in the Mr. Beast video, but he was hanging out there,
He just said
And he was
back like
filming behind the scenes.
I mean, Carl Jacobs,
Yeah.
before going off and doing his own thing, was part of the Mr. Beast crew. So.
Well, he still is
He
part of the
still
Mr.
is. He
Beast
just also does his own stuff too.
Mm.
He spread his wings.
Yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
I just think of Mr. Beast as a cryptid, where he's just like, sometimes appears in certain things, and then is like, here's a bunch of money, bitches, I'm out. And then he leaves.
Bye.
You know? It's just, his existence is weird, it baffles me. Because, I don't really care about him, I don't have much of a connection to him.
Oh.
But I really like a lot of the people that he talks to. So, it tends to be like that. So, how we doing today?
Yes.
Warm.
How we doing today, bitches?
Josh. I'm ready to read.
I'm gonna explode.
We're gonna.
I am ready to read.
We're ready.
I'm ready.
We're
Also,
gonna try.
who is Puppy again?
I'm party.
I know we decided on a Puppy, but I couldn't remember who.
I believe I was Puffy.
Okay.
Captain Puffy, one of the people in the GMSMP in the fic. She is the
Slam Mom.
the leader of the group, the person that's running
Yeah,
the
she's
poetry
leader of the
group.
Slam.
She's the mom friend.
She's leader of the Slam poetry group that Tommy is a part of.
Yes. So yeah. There we go. We're probably gonna read like 2 more chapters, if we can get through them. We're
If we can.
We're on 5 and there's 8.
Yeah, so we're gonna read 5 and 6 if we can get through them.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Mads are not 100% today, so it might reflect a little bit, but that's okay.
That's
The
okay.
grind doesn't stop. The Jack Manifold grind never stops.
Just went to a funeral, but the grind doesn't stop.
Oh, no!
Keep watching the Jack Manifold grind don't stop.
It's a joke.
Oh,
It's a
I thought you were
joke. Yes, it's somebody had said that in Jack Manifold's Donos. He was
I thought it is serious. I was like, oh no.
They said at a funeral, but the Jack Manifold grind never stops.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then people just started saying like, almost just died, but the Jack Manifold grind doesn't stop.
That's great. That's amazing.
It's a really
Yes,
good running
yes.
bit. So we're gonna continue.
All right. Yes.
Yes.
I just realized that.
Clap, 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 clap. Snap, snap, snap. Snap,
Also-
snap, snap.
I contacted the writer on Twitter, and he was like, "People reading my stuff, PogChamp," and I was like, "Thanks for the approval."
It was cool to see. It
Smile.
was cool to see recognition from the author of the.
Yeah, I was like, "They know we exist."
It's like, oh, recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now we read. So.
Also, should I turn this more this way because I'm quieter, or should it, or is it?
I have the mic tilted because I don't want it to pick up Mads, but
Because of.
Eh.
I think it's fine.
is it okay like this?
I think so. I was just making sure it was picking me up. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Okay. Nodders.
Nodders.
Once again, we look at the tags. This fic covers a
The
variety
trigger
of
one.
themes. If you don't want to listen to something about those themes, maybe this isn't the reading session for you.
Like how it says author protection.
Yeah.
20 in it.
Yeah. Single tier.
Single tier.
Single tier.
We're all kind of messed up in a way.
No good.
We're a little
Reference
messed up,
character death.
you know.
Implied / reference character death. Yeah, we'll probably. I think we're actually
Yeah.
get to that in this session. Actually,
No,
They
no.
they just fucking kill Phil.
no.
That's I believe that is 7, or it might be
If
be
it's
6.
what I'm
It might be chapter 6.
If it's the part I'm thinking of, I think it's this chapter or the next one. Probably the next
I
one.
don't think it's this chapter.
Probably the next one.
Bad parent Phil.
It could be the next one.
Bad parent Phil Watson.
I don't know though, man. I don't know.
I love
Welcome
that
to the slam.
they're calling out Phil right now. Like, they're calling out Phil right now. Canon Phil. Not real life Phil, but canon Phil. It's like, but like,
Yeah.
it's complicated. Canon Phil is complicated. We won't get into it.
We'll get into it later.
We'll get into
At a
it
different
later.
point in time, maybe.
Yes.
Not now.
Also, I'm just here to have fun.
Not now.
Same. Okay. Well, let's continue. Trigger warnings for this chapter specifically are implied car crashes and amputation. Also mentions of firearms. So
I got a gun.
/ guns used in metaphor. That should be specified.
yes. So
It's
yeah,
not
just keep that in
real.
mind as we continue.
Mhm.
Also, we're chewing on like lollipops, so you can probably hear it. And
Oh my
Lollipop.
gosh. I'm not. I'm just over here
I send you virtual lollipop.
hanging. I don't want it.
Okay.
oh,
No.
okay. Mario's so nice.
I don't want it.
My
Okay,
lolly.
who's starting? Who's starting the reading?
I could start the reading if you want me to.
Go for it.
Okay.
Worm.
Chapter 5. My Darling Turns to Poetry at Night. Title from My Darling Turns to Poetry at Night. That's the title of the poem. By Anthony Lawrence.
Nice.
Let me just... There was a sorcery occurring. He could feel the hum of it in the thinnest parts of his palms, where veins pressed against cracked skin and beat into the rush of his blood. His knee bounced, eagerness overtaking him as he scribbled onto the blank page, steadily filling each line with hurried pen strokes that sung of heartaches and new friends. Around him, his teammates were partaking in a similar type of magic. It was just their weekend quick write. one they did every poetry practice to get the juices flowing. But there was something in the air today. Maybe it was the way the fairy lights of Kanoko's were winking at as their batteries bled. Maybe it was the way the dregs of their drinks lay forgotten in the bottom of their cups, aromas wafting in the air and tangling amongst each other. Or maybe it was just the prompt Puffy had picked. But whatever it was brilliant. Pick a secret, the team captain had announced, setting up a timer on her phone. It could be one that you've had for years, or one that you just had this morning. Whatever it is, pick one and write from the perspective of that secret. When he had first heard that prompt, he wanted to laugh. A persona poem from his biggest secret, as if his biggest secret wasn't the mere act of writing itself. It was meta, he'd give it that. It was meta and totally, hilariously painful, but Puffy's prompts always were. The team captain firmly believing in shoving her riders out of their comfort zone to access their true potential. Sure, sometimes it led to scrambled messes of words and jumbled thoughts. Sometimes it was nothing more than venting on paper in misshapen images. But every now and then, when Puffy nudged them just right, it made something beautiful. Vulnerability, she'd say, twirling a pen between her fingers as if it was a dagger and she was the assassin.
Oh my God.
Is the best way to start a poem. Start genuine, and the rest will follow. Oh, random viewer. Hi, welcome to the stream. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yes. Matt, do you want to pick up from here?
Sure. Start genuine. Tommy couldn't help but think that's what made this whole thing hard sometimes. Allowing a stranger to see the deepest parts of yourself, your true self, all through a few words on the page. Starting genuine meant doing away with throwaway similes and figurative language that decorated his thoughts, meant clearing away all of that excess to find the core of what he was saying, who he was. Start genuine, and stand waiting as the entire world judged you. And yes, it was all terrifying, so much so that sometimes the thought of going to poetry practice or sending his teammates his newest draft ate away at his chest and clogged his breath. But there was still nothing like it. The adrenaline each time he finished his first draft, the feeling of being under his skin and exploding with each hurried breath as he smeared ink all over his hands, his face, uncaring at the aftermath of his art, because this was creating. This was everything spellbinding and impossible. It was a late night spent marking up third drafts with red pens and a discarded Coke can by his side. It was mumbling lines of well-loved poems to yourself in the grocery store. It was sending your friend a cento that reminded you of them. It was acidic and savory and warmth and numbing, and it was magic. It was his magic. And it was addictive, that was for sure. Lord only knows how many times Rambo had to poke him to actually take notes during class instead of trying his hand at haikus in the margins of his paper. Start genuine, and the rest would follow. It was easy to say that his biggest secret was his family didn't know what he wrote. He could rant to Tavo for hours about the simultaneous want to have Philza recognize his art, but the revulsion at the thought of the man reading his work. Could draft
I actually don't know how that's pronounced, and I wish I did.
Yeah.
This word right
about
here.
poems tucked away
Sistina?
once sunrise came, only to be loved at night.
Sistina?
Sestina. We'll just say that.
Sus.
Sus. Oh my god! Sorry, Matt's continue.
But was that really it? It felt too easy, too safe. If there was one thing Tommy knew Puffy hated, it was easy poems. Always go past the first read, Mr. Sam would say in AP Lang, dark eyes glittering as he highlighted a seemingly inconsequential line in an Allen Ginsberg poem. There's always something beyond the easy answer, always something deeper. Look at the expected and find the unexpected. Tommy's fingers had wrapped tighter around his pen as he pondered in those few minutes, teammates scrambling to link words around him. So what was his biggest secret? What lay underneath the surface?
Draven,
Next to him, Puffy had briefly...
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Draven, do you want to pick up from here?
Sure. I was looking up the meaning of Sistina.
What does it say?
A poem with 6 stanzas of 6 lines and a final
Triplet.
triplet.
Or, yeah. So it's
That
a
sounds
very
like the same
specific
as
kind of
yours.
poem with it's just like a poem, a specific kind of poem set by the amount of certain things. So it's just,
Mm-mm.
it's got a lot of lines.
Sistina. I was
A
right.
Sistina. Okay, yeah, Sistina.
Yeah.
So where are we?
Poetry terms, everybody.
Poetry terms.
It's
I
the
believe we're
next
right
to
here.
him.
Yes, we're right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just...
Next to him, Puffy had really stopped her own spell work to glance up at him, tilting her head as she watched
Indecision.
indecision play upon his face. Her pen
Stilled.
stilled, and she shot him a reassuring smile. He had tried his best to take it in stride. He tried to pretend he didn't notice the worry pinching her features. There was something deeper beneath his dried mouth and the creature clawing at his throat. It lay patiently in his chest, sleepy and unassuring.
Unassuming.
I hate myself.
No, it's fine.
Sleepy and unassuming. Sure. It was waiting for him to just reach between the slits of this ribcage and pluck it out, waiting for him to nudge it awake. But what was it? What about himself did he not know? Look at the unexpected.
The expected.
Oh my god. You know, maybe I shouldn't read.
No, it's okay.
It's okay.
Keep going.
What did he know about himself? Well, he was a rising senior in high school who liked writing and hated PE. Me too. His favorite color was pink, even if he told everyone it was red, because red was a manly color that meant danger and strength. Pink reminded him too much of a certain older brother. He hated pistachio ice cream. His name was Tommy Watson. Well, that wasn't quite right. Technically, his first name was Theseus.
Theseus.
He was named by his, at the time, 7-year-old brother, who had hyper-fixated on Greek mythos. Sue him, but it was unwillingly and embarrassing, Jesus Christ. Unwillingly embarrassing, and no one had called him since. Tekno's junior year, and there's always something beyond the easy answer. Always something deeper.
Do you want me to switch with you here? Okay.
I'm struggling.
I
I don't know.
The struggle is real.
The struggle is real. And no one but his family and his school's front office knew his name wasn't Tommy. Not even Tubbo. He had taken special care to erase all trace of legend and tragedy from himself. All the imprints his brothers had left behind, their fingerprints dusted away with each Tommy K. Watson scribbled down on a homework assignment and permission slip. To everyone else, he was Tommy, the kid who hitched rides with almost strangers and was always on the move, always finding new places to hide away. The kid with an eardrum-shattering laugh that got him more than a few stern talking tos in school, who cursed just a little too much and apologized not enough. To everyone but him, he was just Tommy Watson, a salvage name, a lie. Find the unexpected. And with that, he began to write. The poem is like an acrobat. Something in him couldn't help but hum now, wry and lilting, as he dashed his thoughts across the page like a skull on stone. Climbs on rhyme to a high wire of his own making. He curled closer to his notebook, propping it up on his knees as he crossed out an entire stanza and started from scratch. There was an image stuck to him that clung to the skin underneath his knuckles and dragged itself across the jutted bone of his wrist. One of creaking front porches in the aftermath of shipwrecks, of strangers with achingly familiar faces, and an empty chair at the kitchen table. He let the images overtake him, and, just like that, he was lost in a world of his own making. Stop! 15 minutes are up! And just like that, it was already over. Wrap up whatever line you're at. We're gonna share whatever is on our page, even if it's just a line. Puffy called out, and something in the room burst, the chatter of Kinoka's returning to Tommy's ears as he breathes, elation falling from a simmer to a bubble, and then finally to a rest as he placed his pen down. Across from him, Foolish is making a mad dash to finish whatever he's writing, and Punk has pulled out his earbuds with a nervous laugh, staring at the words on his page as if they would leap out and bite him. Even Dream, who always sat so still and unperturbed during practices, as if nothing could faze him, was anxiously playing with his mechanical pencil, unloading and reloading the lead with the care of one would treat a rifle.
He should have been the principal.
Do you think the principal's gonna be relevant in this thing?
No, but it just would have been amazing.
It would have been funny. I mean, how do you know he isn't?
Good point. He's everyone.
Yeah. Puffy gave a sharp
Shadow
grin.
principal.
Yeah. Puffy gave a sharp grin. All right, sharing time. Punk, you're up. Mads, do you want to take it from here?
Sure.
Who should
The
voice
man
Punk?
across from Tommy's face. Ooh. Yeah, we should figure that out first.
I can voice Punk.
You want to voice Punk?
I can voice Punk.
Okay, you're gonna have to read a poem.
Oh my god. That's fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Continue, Mads.
The man across from Tommy's face fell, and he nervously stood. Puffy's rule: if you were going to share, you would do it as if you were ready to perform then and there. Tommy pretended he didn't notice the shake to his teammate's legs as Punk swayed, gripping his notebook tighter. He glanced around the room before huffing a sigh, seemingly resigned to the embarrassment of sharing a quick write, an embarrassment they were all intimately familiar with.
It's your turn, Dravy.
I didn't get that far, but I think it's something. I'm not sure.
The performer stated, tugging on the wooden bead dangling from one of his box braids.
That's me.
Yeah, continue.
Okay. Yeah, well, here I go.
He cleared his throat, briefly allowing his eyes to flutter shut as he evened his stance, and the group leaned forward subconsciously, reeled into the little universe Punk was beginning to create. And that was Tommy's favorite part about practice. The temporary universes his teammates would spool for them, with each fragmented quick write and practiced classic.
I am only afraid of my boyfriend when I sit in the passenger seat.
The words fall from his friend's mouth, and Tommy feels as though a window has shattered.
It's such a good
There is
line!
the quiet hum. There is the quiet hum of poets around him as they breathe in the line, and Tommy can't help but find a smile twitch on his lips at the abrupt entrance.
I'm only afraid of my boyfriend music is playing on the radio.
Keep going.
I'm only afraid when music is playing out the radio and I sit in the passenger seat. I'm in the passenger seat and I am afraid of my boyfriend only. I cannot reach the dial to turn off the radio. Steely Dan is playing and I cannot feel the tips of my fingers. I am afraid. My boyfriend is sitting in the driver's seat.
Punk inhaled sharply, as if he wanted to continue, before determinedly pressing his lips shut and giving Puffy a pained nod. Snaps erupted from the small team. Puffy smiling at the post. Sorry, I have to talk while I do the snaps. Okay. Puffy smiling at the poet, eyes dewy with a thinly veiled pride blossoming in the crow's feet near her eyes as she murmured, "A good job," while the other timidly began to sit down. Foolish eagerly chatters about the use of repetition as he gives Punk constructive feedback, and Dream nods along, butting in to only mention that the poem might work better if given form or a rhyme scheme.
Oh, what about like a muted sestina? What about like a mutated sestina?
That's a weird.
Tommy interrupted, and all eyes turned to him. He fought off a blush at the sudden attention.
I mean, you're obviously got talent for repetition, and I think that is sestina would help emphasize the words you're focusing on, but you should like play with it, make it your own.
Tom tilted his head before breaking into a grin.
I like that. A sestina.
He pondered it for a bit longer, humming quietly to himself as he glanced down at his page before perking up. His smile turned anxious.
Oh, and one more secret, I guess. Though doesn't have a poem.
He took a deep breath, face twitching in worry before he spouted.
I use all pronouns, just for future reference. Yeah, nice. Wait.
Dope.
Yeah, nice, dope, thanks.
The team blinked, stunned into silence until chaos erupted and Foolish clapped, and Puffy suddenly
Let's go,
howled.
LGBTQs!
Woo!
Honk is laughing, hands covering her face in mild mortification as Dream has given her a clap on her back, murmuring something that makes Ponk laugh even harder. And Tommy feels a surge of affection over.
That's one way to come out. That's one way to come out. That's one way to do it. That's one way to come out.
Oh, Christ. The realization is not sudden, but it's no less disarming. I love these fucking idiots.
Aww.
He subtly ignores the cool fear that pricks at the waves of warmth beating against his ribcage, instead giving Ponk a toothy smile and a heartfelt congratulations.
All right, next Foolish.
And so they continue, each poet reading the few stanzas they manage to pen down, and the group responding with a mixture of praise and critique. Foolish admits that he didn't know how to change a light bulb. Apparently he has been living in complete darkness for the past 2 months because of it, and spent almost $100 in candles. Puppy proudly announces that she has conditioned herself only to cry at Lord songs. Dream quietly reads from his notebook, "Only 4 people know where I live. This fact has a meaning," before quickly sitting down, and the secret remains a secret for another poem. And suddenly it's Tommy's turn to join the fray. Tommy stood...
Can I take over here? Can I? If you want me to?
Yeah.
If it's okay. Okay.
Well, you're gonna say the line. Well, you're gonna have the line anyway.
Oh,
so
true,
I'll
because
just
I'm
read the rest
Tommy.
of it.
Fine.
Wow.
Anyway.
This is the only part I will fight over. Tommy stood, shoulders hunched inward and eyes bouncing from poet to poet as he struggled to smooth his breathing, failing as his heart thundered. He cleared his throat once, twice, before forcing out,
Okay. I kind of wrote this really hurriedly the last night, so...
The too familiar no disclaimers of his friends interrupts him as he scrambled to collect his thoughts, offering a weak smile.
Right, okay, so, here it goes.
There is a moment before you share a newborn poem in which you hesitate. It is here that the poet has the most power over themselves that they will ever have. They can decide now, in the small flutter of their lungs before they speak, if they will smother their newborn where it lays, kill it off before it even has a chance to open its eyes. It is here the poet becomes a necromancer, momentarily given sovereignty over life as they glance down at their infant universe, and decide whether or not they should let it burn out and collapse in upon itself, leaving a ghost in its place. Tommy looked down at the first line of his poem and made a decision.
I am a freshman in high school when I first kill Theseus.
Across from him, Dream's eyes gleamed.
It's such a good line. I love it.
What is this line?
He killed Theseus.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh. Do the snaps. Do the snaps.
Step, step, step. I don't even know if I can hear the snaps. Can you hear the snaps?
Snips.
I can't hear your snaps. Mads, can you clear the chat?
That's good. Yeah, well, how do I...
There's a dum-dum. Fucking bots.
Well, I can't clear the one on the screen. You're gonna have to reload that one.
Fuck. There we go. I first of all, Dravy doesn't know a lot of the Dream SMP stuff. So, having Punk be the LGBTQ, I can't remember exactly. Yeah, having Punk use all pronouns is based off of the actual content creator.
Oh, yeah, I think you told me that before, actually.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, I'm like, oh yes, it makes sense.
Oh.
Yes, all the
That's
thingies. Just
Thingies.
all the thingies. Also, like,
Thingies.
it was kind of referenced in earlier chapters, but like do you want to like talk about Punk's poem real quick? I'm
afraid.
Oh,
yeah, just I believe it was discussed in like the first chapter when we were introduced to Punk in this fic. But they don't have one of their arms.
Is that like to the actual person, or is that just like the character?
The character. Okay. That's a reference to the Dream SMP character who also lost their arm in the canon of the Dream SMP.
It is a very sad way.
Yeah.
More in the Dream SMP canon.
Yeah, in the Dream SMP canon, it was because Sam was trying to get information out of Punk because Punk had stolen key cards to the prison.
Oh.
And it was very bad.
I thought you were just a high school student. Oh, but did you tell Mads the possibility that the Arthur might have watched one of the streams?
Yeah, I did. I said the thing.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fine.
Cool. Okay.
But
Yeah, we do.
Shh. Don't tell the audience. It's fine.
It's a secret.
It's a secret.
It's a secret. In this fic, it seems like also like Sam's character in the Dream SMP is kind of like a kind of split in a way, because there's like Warden Sam, who is the one who was in charge of the prison, and then there's like the other version of Sam who is just like, it's like normal Sam. He just like goes around and does his thing and is like, hey, you're great, and like flirts and all that shit. And then there's also like there's a Sam Nook. It's basically just Sam, but it's like Tom Nook. He talks through. It does like he talks in the chat, and it does like the little burr things that you usually get in Animal Crossing. And it's great. So it's like his character is kind of torn in a way a little bit. It's almost like work persona and responsibilities versus non-work persona and responsibilities. And so it's like his work persona was the one who did that to Punk, and like so he doesn't really understand that he did that to them. And it's like a whole thing where it's like where they act like they didn't do the thing, and then Punk is like, I want to murder you. I want to murder you.
Oh my god. Perish Ubu.
Yeah. So in this story, it seems like they molded that for the purpose of the story in the way of I believe, I might be wrong about this, but I believe Sam and Punk are still together in this fic.
Yeah. They're still dating.
Yeah.
In the fic.
Yeah, but it seems like the poem might be implying that like maybe they had like gotten in an argument in the car, and that led to them getting in a car crash, and that was what led to Punk losing their arm.
Oh no. No.
So it's like it's talking about their specific fear of that specific thing, because that is what had led to them losing their arm. And so that's why it's like or it's cry.
Sad.
It's cry. We cry.
Sag.
We cry.
I'll have to send the
we cry.
Sag.
And then of course we got the line from Tommy. in the fandom, a lot of people like to make Tommy Theseus, or they like make a lot of references to Theseus because of a specific moment in the Dream SMP history where it was we're actually on
It was
the
actually a
anniversary.
year ago yesterday.
Yeah.
Exactly a year ago yesterday.
Yeah, exactly a year ago yesterday. On the Dream SMP, it was the whole they got rid of Manberg, but then like Techno spoilers. Techno and Wilbur were like, we're gonna just
It's been a year.
we're gonna destroy the things, and so how dare you text in the chat? So they were like, but Techno had a whole monologue with Tommy, well, not monologue necessarily, but he had a whole conversation with Tommy in that moment after everything was exploded, where he was like, do you remember the quotes? You probably remember the quotes, Matt.
It was basically, let's see.
You can do
Sorry,
it
I'm
on
like
YouTube.
racking my brain. I know it.
Yeah.
But it's basically like, let me tell you a story, Tommy. A story of a man named Theseus. You see, Theseus went and he killed the Minotaur.
Yes.
And he saved his village.
Yeah, you know mythology.
I know.
But you know what they did to him, Tommy? You know what they did to him? They exiled him.
Oh.
They exiled him, Tommy. In this world, Tommy, heroes don't win, or something like that.
Yeah.
and then he's like, do you want to be a hero, Tommy? Do you want to be a hero? Then die like one.
And then he summons 3 withers. And then he summons
Wow.
Yeah, or is it 2 withers? I think it might have been 2
He was
withers.
also the king of Athens.
It
at
was
one point.
two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's like there's parallels between the story of Theseus and Tommy, especially since
That's
literally next arc he gets exiled from Lemanberg. And he has a whole exile arc where he gets betrayed by his friends.
That sounds about right. You can be friends with the Minotaur in hell.
And then Techno calls him Theseus again after he saves him from exile, just like the story of Theseus, where Techno saves him from exile, and then he like shows him this big bunker of wither skulls that he has, and he goes, "Welcome home, Theseus."
Mm-hmm.
Welcome home.
Welcome home. Smile.
Welcome home.
Smile.
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 It's this one. It's this one. Welcome home.
Smile.
Smile.
Smile. So yeah, it makes sense why, especially in a fic like this, they would have it so that Tommy's real name was Theseus.
Yeah.
And the line of like,
And I'm pretty sure based on my knowledge of Tommy lore and the fact that his middle name is K, his middle name is Kraken.
Ketamine. Sorry.
His middle name is Ketamine.
So he's Theseus Kraken Watson.
Yep. Ketamine. So, yeah. So then the line of,
But I may be wrong.
yeah.
Kraken. His middle name is Kraken.
His name is
That's
Kraken. Yeah, it is. It's Danger Kraken in it.
Nah.
Motherfucker.
Danger
Careful
Kraken.
Danger Kraken in it. It's
This is
Tommy,
on
big
crack.
man, Careful Danger Kraken in it.
Yeah. So, the line, I'm a freshman in high school when I first killed Theseus. Super good. If we think, let's think about, now
Love
we're in the
that
universe of the fic again. Because it's like, it's like when it's killing the old version of himself, the version, like it said here, the version of himself that his family knows. He basically started becoming his own different person. And there's been a bunch of discussion throughout the fic of them being like, they don't really know who Tommy is anymore.
Oh.
You know? So it's like a metaphorical death, but it's like really powerful because he just says kill in that moment. And then also like having it be Theseus also is like he killed the sacrificial hero in him.
Oh.
Almost. Like he's done dealing with people's bullshit. And like he's trying to do his own thing. That's what it feels like to me. So I really like that line. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
And so
More.
I just like that line. Yeah.
I remember when I read that it hit me in the face.
Oh.
When I first
I cried.
Yeah.
I legit
It is really good.
teared up.
Yeah, it is really good.
That's my thought. This mini.
Woo!
Wee.
Okay, let's continue.
Yee.
Okay, I'll start the narration here
Yee.
from here.
Yee.
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 The practice they spent the rest of the night stargazing. Not stargazing. Practice they spent the rest of the night strategizing how to best maneuver their way through the slam, which, in Tommy's opinion, was much more stressful than showing a poem he had whipped up in 15 minutes. Just in order to participate, they needed a minimum of 7 poems. Only 1 poem could be repeated in between the first 2 rounds, if they made it that far, that is. And this did not include the 3rd round, which was dedicated to what they called shorty poems, performances of a classic and response that were both under a minute, with a 30-second grace period, which made Tommy want to crawl underneath a table and cry. A 1-minute poem? In what world? The most poems they could feasibly bring to the table would probably be 8 max, meaning that a few folks would have both group poems and solos to juggle. Tommy couldn't help the stuttering of his breath at that knowledge, that he might be responsible for more than just one performance, that they somehow need to find a way to mesh his writing with another's. That's fucking terrifying. Alright, while this discussion is fine and dandy, Puffy interrupted their mutterings, looking for all the world like a war general stood in the situation room. The best way to go about this is to collect what classics y'all are thinking of and see if they overlap. Last practice, I asked you to comprise a list of 3 classic poems and 1 shorty you liked from this year's anthology. It's game time. Spill. Tommy pulled out his phone and scrolled through his notes app, ignoring the countless untitled notes that were beginnings of long abandoned pieces or reminders to text Rambo for Spanish notes. Biting his lip as he bounced his knee with anticipation, he wasn't nervous per se. In fact, he was ecstatic to finally begin pinning down the set list for the slam, but he was hoping that being so fresh on the scene, so new, wouldn't hinder his chances of claiming a classic for himself. Foolish had mentioned offhandedly that past teams he'd been on, something called Las Nevadas or other, apparently they might be making an appearance this year at the S&P, had always allowed senior team members to pick classes first, leaving the crumbs to the newbies, and Tommy was terrified that he'd end up having to respond to an old Walt Whitman poem or something. Not that there's anything wrong with Walt, he chided himself as he clicked on the note file he was looking for. I just have no good input for anything regarding "Oh Captain, my Captain," and I refuse to read that poem one more time.
Can I be foolish?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'll go first.
Foolish lifted his hand to catch Puffy's attention, pulling out his trusty leather-bound notebook with an engraved shark on the front, courtesy of Ponk for his birthday.
For full-length classics, I really like Small Craft Talk Warning by Dean Young and Essay on Craft by Ocean Young as well. My 3rd was a bit different from those 2. I chose Song by Adrienne Rich. For Shorty, I liked Housekeeping by Natasha Featherway.
These are all real poems that you can look up. So there you go. There's more poems you can look up.
Me.
More poems.
This is your line, Jamie.
This is me? Okay. Oh, I liked Ocean Young's. That was on my list.
Pong's hand shot up like she was a kindergartner again. In her excitement, she wobbled a bit off of balance. his singular arm causing him to lean a little too close to the left, but seemed undisturbed as their teammates shot forward as if to catch them, steadying themselves easily.
I'd be down to do a group piece.
Group piece.
Were they constantly like calling them like different pronouns?
Yeah.
In that?
They were
Like,
switching.
I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah. It's really great. I love it when authors do that.
Yeah, referring to the same person, but like that's cool. That's like I
Yeah.
like that.
Do either of you want to pick up from here?
I'll pick
Yeah,
up, I guess.
Mads, you pick up from here.
Yeah.
Puppy hummed, looking I can't say that word right now.
Contemplative.
Contemplative. There we go. As she relaxed backwards, now the potential crisis was averted, and Tommy was reminded with a snicker why they all called her Mama Puppy. Flicking through the large binder that contained every poem in this year's anthology. Who is that? I think that's Puppy? Oh,
it's Ponk.
Is Pong? I like to be honest, as
Oh, yeah.
craft too. We could hop on it as a group poem if you want, unless you're feeling really strongly about doing it as a solo.
not at all! Bullish gave a toopy grin, one that reminded Tommy a bit too much like the shark-mouthed marine animals he loved so much. I like to try my hand at a group piece. It's been ages.
Nice. So that's a start. Anyone else have overlap?
Puppy paused to look up at the group, nodding decidedly as the other members of the team shook their heads no.
Great. Okay. Me, Punk, and Foolish on Young's classic.
And suddenly,
Tommy, what poems were you thinking?
he felt his chest tighten, but took it as a good sign that Puppy was asking for his input second instead of last. Sure, it didn't guarantee that he'd get the poems he'd want, but it was better than being forced to sit on the sidelines as he turned over the remaining pieces in the anthology. Next to him, Dream had perked up, eyeing the team curiously as he pulled up the list of poems he liked on his notes app, which admittedly was way more than 5, but he had been able to boil it down to a handful he'd liked the most.
Right. Okay. I was really into Orchids Are Sprouting from the Floorboards by Kevin Akbar because, it's Kava, but Kava.
Yeah.
Kava. But I also liked Sometimes I Don't Know If I'm Having a Feeling by Matthew Segal and Frame by Franny Choi.
Yeah.
For my shorty, I thought Good Bones by Maggie Smith was good, but I'm not really sure I feel comfortable. I don't think I'm meant for short form, if that's okay.
Tommy was not known for sounding uncertain, was known to, despite anything less than exuding picture-perfect confidence. Exuding. That's the word. But in this small group of artists cluttered around a singular table in the corner of Kanoko's way past closing, he couldn't help but the self-doubt beginning to claw at his chest, sinking its reckless teeth into his lungs. Wow, I'm having a time.
Whoop, whoop.
He wheezed through the puncture wounds quietly as the other slam poets took this in. Punk propping their chin in their palm as they appraised the young writer, Dream rolling their pen between their index and thumb. Puppy nodded empathetically, trying for a smile that Tommy knew was supposed to be reassuring but felt a little too sweet.
Of course, Tommy. Don't feel pressured to sign on to anything you don't feel comfortable with. This is about having fun, not winning.
Dream scoffed playfully, and Puffy's left eye twitched, though her smile did not waver.
Even if a certain parkour nerd has a competitive streak. He does parkour.
That winning.
Dream.
Hey, I'm just saying that winning should be at least one of our goals. His tone lacked the usual heat that accompanied a debate-ready Dream, and he leaned forward from where he was perched on the couch to make eye contact with Tommy. Though a few of those poems were ones I had on my list. I had both the Segal piece and the Kava, but I'm learning Segal. I'm leaning Seagal. Maybe if you're comfortable or whatever, we could do a group piece. A duo?
Dream.
Puffy stated, a warning lilt to her tone that had Tommy squaring his shoulders. The said 20-year-old ignored her, instead boring his hazel eyes into Tommy's, the sea crashing against the withering moss on a river rock. He recognized it for what it was. Even if an olive branch was being extended, there was a hint of taunting to the way it shivered in the unpredictable wind between them. It was a challenge. Dream was trying to get a read on Tommy, trying to figure him out, as Puffy had said just a few weeks ago. Even if the other member accepted him into the team with open arms, Dream still wanted him to prove his worth. Only 4 people know where I live. The man's words had wormed their way back into his ear, and Tommy understood what he really meant. I'm not a man who trusts easy, and I guard what's mine closely. If you want to know me, you're going to have to force your way in. Tommy tried to ignore the goosebumps beginning to rise on his skin.
A duo?
Yeah, just me and you. I was thinking a really cool concept piece that could work perfectly for that poem, and I think our voices could mesh really well for it. Of course, if you just want to stick to solos, that's fine, but I'm thinking this piece could push us over the edge. I haven't seen someone do a group piece with the Seagal poem, and definitely not the response I'm thinking of. He leaned back, ankle leaned casually upon his knee as if discussing the weather. Tommy anxiously gripped his phone in his hands, willing himself to stop squirming. Jesus fuck, why is this dude so intimidating?
Dream.
Puffy had placed down her binder, hands on her hips. She cocked her head, eyes narrowed in frustration.
This isn't some experiment or high-risk parkour tournament. This is art. Tommy's art. You shouldn't pressure him to do something he doesn't want to. I'm in.
Tommy blurted, causing Puffy to blink in shock. Whether it be at Tommy taking the bait or just for interrupting her, he didn't know. And the others to shuffle anxiously. Across from him, Dream's river rock remained unflinching as Tommy's ocean churned.
I think that'd be fine. I'm in. I think I'd like to try.
Dream's returning smirk was almost enough to make Tommy immediately regret his decision. Almost. Mr. Sam had always said that he had a stubborn streak, one that made teaching him hard but disliking him even harder. You don't know when to give up, which admittedly can be a bad thing when you refuse help, but it also means that you were one hell of a student. And that was true. He had spent enough detention in the freshman year cooped up with his math teacher purely for the fact that he refused the woman's help on assignments and turned his nose up at I can't read that word.
Redeemal. I think it's
classes, but even the old vet had to admit that that he was determined to get the question right. He'd get it right, no matter how many tries it took. If anything was to be questioned about Tommy, it would not be his dedication. And no, that stubbornness was all him. No hand-me-downs from older siblings or inherited from his father's bloodline. It was all Tommy Watson, no one else.
Can I pick up here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's Tommy
Sorry,
Watson
I was just going
and no
on.
one else. Okay. Puffy tried her best to quell the hesitance in her voice, but everyone could hear it by the way her words quivered as if she was moments from cussing a certain someone out. That makes another group piece by Tommy and Dream. I think that means the rest can be solos. Anyone down to claim a shorty from the jump? Pong's hand rose again, and the room erupted in chatter as the group negotiated poems to fill their set. But Tommy had already begun tuning the noise out. He was still staring at Dream, watching as the older's relaxed posture shifted minutely, his palms resting upon his thigh as he drummed his fingers. He wasn't anxious, that much was obvious, but the energy he had been keeping pent up was beginning to burst, as if he had been hiding his cards until the final hour. as if this was all merely a game of cat and mouse, and Tommy knew exactly who was meant to be the prey this round. I am concerned, sweat. Fear.
Sweat.
Dream's gaze snapped to Tommy's and his fingers stilled. The oxygen of the room constricted, a new, sharp universe beginning to bloom in the separated atoms around them. The man tilted his head, and Tommy mirrored the action, blue eyes flickering, and dreams glinted in kind. The unsettling of an ocean before a monsoon, met by the rustle of spring leaves before they turn color. The clashing of elements never meant to touch, yet perfectly imperfectly balanced. The two stared at each other, both aware that in whatever game they were deciding to play, there would be either two victors or none at all. This poem was a group effort, and while it may be a trial orchestrated by the elder to test the will of the younger, there would either be success or failure. The latter was unacceptable. This Tommy knew. A high wire of his own making. Even if this wire was bound to snap one day, leaving him helpless in midair, he would still tiptoe upon it as if this was what he was made for. Because it was. Dream may be doubtful of his abilities as a poet, but writing was what he was built to do. His brain was a thing of metaphors and sparking cables, of acid-washed images and similes and disorganized line breaks and all the things that made poetry a thing to be loved. If his teammate wanted to pose a challenge, he'd have no qualms about rising to the occasion. If his teammate wanted a game of cat and mouse, he'd be sure to give him one of dog eat dog.
Ugh.
Because sure, they might be at each other's throats, but a wolf could recognize one of its kind, and regardless of how the other snarled and howled and snapped, they were still pack animals at heart. They still would be drawn to each other's moonlit company, two creatures of the same breed, just as eager as the other to demonstrate the claws and fangs they'd be willing to give for this pack, for this team, how much they'd be willing to tear, just as eager to establish their dominance. And Tommy refused to be the runt any longer.
You are baby.
Wolf metaphors again.
Wolf metaphors again. The wolf metaphor again.
Woo.
But this time it's the...
I'm gonna go get more water. My throat's killing me.
Okay, man.
But I'll be back. You guys talk.
Okay. I'm gonna... drink break.
Water. I got tea. Steve.
We're back.
Yay.
Welcome back from the short break. We are ready to continue. So as I was gonna say, I need to get my brain back in the game.
My brain back in the game. In the game.
First of all, I love the metaphors that are reoccurring. The circus one is great. The one with the wire, that one keeps coming back. Where it's like
the tightrope.
Yeah, the tightrope. The balance of like revealing too much, or not revealing enough. And it's like, and then there's the wolves. I really like for his stuff with Dream because it's like, obviously there's the thing with the wolves of them having like, there's like the whole anger thing where it's like they're feral and they're ready to attack and there's all that, but there's also the underbelly message of it being like, of them basically being like traumatized animals. So it feels like it's implying that Dream has gone through similar things as Tommy has.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So it's like, like solidarity? What is this?
Yeah, like they can recognize each other's trauma in each other, basically.
Yeah. They can see that in each other and they're like, it's like, oh shit.
Uh-oh.
Oh, worm.
Oh, worm.
A worm?
Oh, worm.
Same hat?
Same hat? Yeah, I really love Dream in this too. He's so fucking dramatic and like super intense and it's like,
I still think it's a missed opportunity that he's not like the Larry.
Yeah.
That would have been so funny.
Yeah, he's just everywhere.
I feel like that would have been Yeah, but I feel like that would have probably been too much of a comedy angle for
Oh, no,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm 100% just joking.
Yeah.
the kind of
In a
fic
comedy
that it
fic,
is.
that would be the best shit. In a comedy fic, that would be the best shit to do. That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my god.
I'm 100% joking.
I'd be like, it's Dream from the SMP. Like,
It's Dream.
he'd be that character that would, like, appear sometimes just to, like, divert attention from something that other characters are doing. Like, you know? Like, he's that one, like, weird celebrity insert or something. I don't know.
It's like he's the teacher, he's the principal, he works at the cafe.
Or, like, the celebrity insert, or, like, in, like, the high school anime, like, the popular kid, where it's like, oh my god, it's Dream, and then everybody flocks to him.
Yeah.
Like, it's
he's
like
a
that.
popular, like, senpai.
Yeah. That's how I imagine Dream. But yeah, also, I like how they made him do parkour shit.
Yeah.
Because it just makes sense. And he'd be like that. Also, like, real life Dream is super competitive, so it's just like, it's characteristic, it makes sense.
It's similarities, I think so.
Yeah, Draven has informed me that they're ready to try at reading again, so do you want to start us off?
Yeah, we're after the...
Yeah, we're right here.
Yeah. Okay. So now he was here, phone in hand as he grimly stared down at the reminder blurring on his screen in blocked text. Thurs, open mic. They had decided to do a test run of their group poem at an open mic. Carl was hosting in Kinoko's a little get-together for all the poets in the area to try their new material in a judgment-free place. Unfortunately for Carl, he hadn't realized that many poets used it as a way to scope out the other competitors. As the slam loomed closer and closer, while there wouldn't be many poets from their hometown competing, at least not many that Puffy could put a name or a face to, it was still an opportunity for the team to see how their poems matched up to those that they were likely to face off against. Sure, they were running the risk of being plagiarized by another team, but Dream had been steadfast in his belief that his and Tommy's poem would be safe from any potential poaching.
Besides,
The man had said, voice lighter and more
Jovial.
than that him and Tommy had spent hours cooped up together, melding the words into one.
even if they wanted to steal our idea, no one could do it like we could. We got something they don't. Chemistry.
More like you're a lunatic, and I'm the idiot who decided to work with you, Tommy had wanted to say, but he felt warmth bubble in his chest, regardless for all the overwhelming cockiness and intimidation tactics this dude used. He sure was good company, and they worked surprisingly well together. But now, Tommy had a dilemma. Well, he was excited and perhaps a bit terrified at the prospect of reading aloud his poem with Dream for the first time in front of a live audience. He now had to find a way to get to the coffee shop by 9 p.m. Well, usually he took the bus or hitched a ride with a friend, but there was no way that Phil would let the teen run out of the house unaccompanied so late at night. The man might care very little about what Tommy got up to, and was more lenient than any parent should be, but he wasn't absolutely oblivious to the comings and goings of his house, especially now that Techno and Wilbur were there.
You did good!
Which was great and all. Wait,
Do you want to continue? You can keep going.
Okay. Which was great. Which was great and all, but Tommy missed the freedom that had come with his father being somewhat neglectant of his younger son's activities and whereabouts. Look on the bright side, he could almost hear Tubbo's annoyingly optimistic voice chime in his head, and he rolled his eyes on impulse. At least, you're getting homemade dinners each night now. That's gotta be something. Right, silver linings and all that. Thanks, Tubbo. And so here he was, standing outside of a wooden bedroom door with his knuckle poised to knock, but arms unable to move. Part of him wanted to turn on his heel and go the other way. Say screw it to this open mic and text Dream that he'd unfortunately been able to attend. But he knew that he had to at least try. Dream had extended an olive branch, and even if a serpent was twisted around his spine, it would still grab it with both hands.
Yee! Do you want me to continue from here?
Puggies.
Go for it.
At first, he hadn't known who to ask. Phil would definitely be suspicious of where he was going at 9 p.m. and would want to follow, and he was currently in a spat with Wilbur from last night's dinner. But the premise of carpooling with Techno was one that made his stomach turn over in anxiety. Of all his family members, Techno was the one he understood the least. Despite naming him, the pink-haired twin had interacted very little with Tommy when they were growing up. He was always off on trips to fencing tournaments across the state and country, always minimizing the time spent at home with every night at the public library. Techno was an unknown, an enigma. He was unable to puzzle into clarity. An enigma he was unable to puzzle into clarity. And yet, the idea of dragging Wilbur to a slam was just as horrifying. His brother of slam doors and shouting matches. His brother of gentle hands, calloused from metal strings and wind-chimed laughter. The brother that had practically raised him, filling in the roles Techno and Phil had left behind with each improvised lullaby and microwave dinner. Tommy didn't know how to speak to this Will, how to interact now that they had both grown up away from each other. But Wilbur still felt too close, too familiar and unfamiliar all at once. Two brothers, one brand new and the other one twisted into something else. Both strangers, both complete opposites of each other. Sometimes he would look at his brothers and wonder, how can two people born of the same cloth be so different? But he understood that while they may have been sheared from the same fabric, it was the stitching that truly made them distinct. Wilbur was a tapestry, embroidered upon and dotted with thread until the texture sewed meadows and gardens upon his soul's face. And where Wilbur was all pretty stitching and handled with care, Techno was patterned, was repeating seams that created rivulets until it was the sea's yawning mouth, deep and suffocating. Pick your poison, he wanted to sing, dry and bitter. If there is no lesser of two evils, then what venom will you choose to be your downfall? He flexed his hand, knuckles aching impatiently as they waited for him to make contact with the wooden door in front of him. Tommy loosened a frustrated sigh through his nose, sure if anyone looked they'd find steam pouring from his ears. Mm-hmm. Find a ride. Why couldn't Kanuko's just be down the street? Couldn't Carl consider relocating? He was sure the real estate here was booming enough to prompt a move. Why did Phil have to be so stringent on curfews? Mm-hmm. It's not like Tommy had ever gotten kidnapped before whenever he took the bus. Whatever, just do it. It's for the sake of art. Yeah, pretend that it's for the glory of the performance poetry. He snorted. Yeah, sure, he'd go with that. He was doing this for the integrity of the artistic world, allowing his two estranged brothers to poke around in his business for the first time in 8 years. Totally worth it. With a lurch, his fist pounded on the door, an awkward echoing in the empty hall as he waited for his brother to open his bedroom door. For a brief moment there was a silence on the other side of the wood. No indication that anyone had heard him, and Tommy almost sagged with relief. Great. Now he could go tell Dream that he had tried to book a ride, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. Aw, sorry man, I tried really hard, I promise. I just couldn't find anyone willing. The door jerked open and Tommy froze, hands still lingering in the air from where he had just knocked, eyes wide as the glow of red LED lights fell into the hallway, casting shadows upon the floor, pinned under his feet.
Tommy? What do you want?
Wilbur asked. Bitch. Cunt. Wilbur asked, and Tommy swore he could feel the effects of poison creeping down his throat. It was coating his tongue in saliva and slick venom, thick and unrelenting as he stared up at his older brother.
Dude, it's like 11 p.m. What could you possibly need right now?
The cutting edge of his brother's words had Tommy reeling before his limbs relaxed with practiced ease. He shot his brother a bashful smile, as if he wasn't currently on the precipice of cursing every god that ever dared to exist and bring his pathetic form into this universe. Hey big man, nice to see you. I wanted to ask a favor. Hypocritically, he prayed to those very same gods that he was just being melodramatic, that this wasn't a catastrophe waiting to happen. He prayed he was lucky enough to escape this week unshattered. Unscathed. Not unshattered. Unshattered. Drama.
I'm made of glass.
Wilbur rose an eyebrow and Tommy gulped. already feeling the heat of anxiety creep up his neck and flush his cheeks. He had a feeling that Lady Luck was out of the office this week.
Clap, clap. Snap, 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 snap.
Snap, 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 snap.
Punk, my beloved.
Snap, 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 snap.
You want to read the author's
Punk
notes?
our
My
beloved.
beloved.
Also, I promise next week chapter is less slam logistics oriented and more emotions with somebody's POV that isn't our boy Tommy's. But this chapter is very much doing the heavy lifting in terms of setting up the slam. Bless her heart. Hope y'all enjoyed though. Spotify playlist.
The Spotify playlist.
I also might have made Spotify playlists when I should have been packing for college for some of the characters. If anyone wants to check them out, you can find them in this link. Some of them hit future events.
Yay.
Ooh woo.
Ooh.
Yeah, you said that recently they made one for Rambo, right?
I keep wanting to be like, you mean Rambo?
You mean Rambo?
You mean Rambo? Like, I'm the
You
one that
need him.
knows.
Yeah. I already left a kudos note.
You will know by the end of this when we get to the most recent chapter.
Yes.
Yes.
I must.
So do you want to do the next one? Because we just did chapter 5.
Yeah, we should do
finished
the
with
next chapter.
5.
Um.
Oh,
Also, yes, I agree.
Big
Punk, I
one.
love it.
Lol.
yes. Yes.
There's a lot of comments, but we're not going to look at them. We're not gonna...
We're not going to look at them.
Yeah. I love
We're
the...
going to move on.
I'm
to
a
chapter
really
6.
big fan of the dramatics of Tommy's POV. I love saying the dramatic lines so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Mm-hmm.
I find great
Yes.
joy.
Yes. I also like how even when Tommy's describing them, he describes them in a way that they'd probably describe themselves. Like Wilbur was described like his voice was like wind chimes, and like his stitching was like musical and somehow, and then Techno's was all like patterned and straightforward.
Yeah.
Like even in Tommy's description of them, they fit their own like minds, I guess.
Yeah, they're very accurate, as you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Accurate to a point that it fits the monologues of said people that are being mentioned. Which is PogChamp.
Yes.
My dance.
My dance.
My little dance. Look at her go. Look at her go.
So we got
Shen the Beloved.
Shed, my beloved.
Okay. Chapter 6. I gave shape to my fears and made excuses. I varied my velocities, watched myself sleep. Title from Birds Hover Over the Trampled Field by Richard Silken. Recommended by one of the lovely people reading this fic. Oh, that's great.
Aw.
wow.
Aww. Ah.
Wow.
Thank you all of those who have read, liked, cooted, and commented so far. There's 60k plus of y'all here, which is nervous laughter. Much more than I would have thought. So thank you very much.
Hey guys.
Wait, what
How's
is-
it going?
What's right?
Huh.
Recommendation. Rec means recommendation. These 2 chapters were written over a period of 10 hours. The next 2 were written in 10 hours? Really?
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
They got a lot of inspiration.
Yep. My god. In which I obsessively listened to one Spotify playlist and typed over 2 drafts of 2 different 6k word chapters, so please be gentle with my errors. I am sure there are many.
Oh no.
Trigger warnings for this chapter?
What's the same or
It's for this chapter specifically. Or,
Different.
yeah, they're different. Mention drinking, smoking/vaping, jokes about car crashes, arguing, lighthearted threats, mentions of bomb/explosives as metaphor. So...
Uh-oh.
Be careful.
Yay!
Be
This is
very,
gonna be
very
fun.
careful.
Pain. Bring me to that emo. Ooh.
Since this is a Wilbur POV, do
Oh,
you want to
should
read
I
it,
start?
Mads? Yeah, do you want to read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Wilbur wasn't sure why he said yes. All right, well, that wasn't exactly the truth. He wasn't sure why he had thought it was a good idea to say yes. When Tommy had knocked on his door, blundering through a half-arsed plea to hitch a ride to Kinoko's at 9 p.m. on a Thursday night, Wilbur's immediate impulse was to curtly say no and close the door on his little brother's face. Sure, it would have been a bit bitchy, but Wilbur hadn't gotten over his jet lag from the flight over, and it was 7 a.m. his time. But it was pitch black outside, and Wilbur's internal clock had no idea what to do with that. He was on the edge from last night's dinner fiasco. Subconsciously, Wilbur knew that his reaction to Tommy's avoidant nature was irrational, and he knew that it was probably a confluence of multiple stressors, such as the fact that he'd forgotten to pack his toiletries and needed to scour for a toothbrush and an acceptable shampoo. Technos would not cut it. But he couldn't help the hurt that had begun to simmer at the thought that Tommy didn't want to talk to him. Once upon a time, Tommy would have given anything to ramble about his latest interest in his older brother, to occupy the teen's time with stories of his escapades, half-baked with fibs. This new Tommy was the complete opposite. New Tommy was quiet, secretive, and so angry. It unsettled both Wilbur and Techno how the youngest fury was no longer something explosive. It was now burrowed underneath measured glares and words that were pinpricks of poison, the tip of something sharper and so much more venomous. Techno had admitted that it made him nervous, which is to say that his twin was terrified by the 17-year-old. He compared the anger to thunderclouds, to something heavy with rain and lightning, just waiting to strike. He was the calm before the storm now, Techno had said. A wind waiting to change. A tempest, if you will. You are so fucking pretentious and dramatic, Wilbur had snarked back.
There's the line.
But he still felt dread pool in his stomach. God, English majors. He's just a teenager, Tech. It'll be fine. Yet, even as he said it, he knew the words were nothing more than a hollow attempt at reassurance. The palpable anger that lined Tommy's movements, quick as a flash and more bite than bark. Wilbur thought it was a time bomb. And wasn't that even more terrifying? His brother was still an explosive. Just not one of firework, bright colors, and hissing pops. Not something harmless until you got too close. He was something of smoke, of gunpowder, of echoes and foundationless buildings with blown-out windows. He was a thing of destruction, and he was just like Wilbur. Nope. That train of thought would not be leaving the station. There would be no self-deprecation today. God, his therapist would be so proud. Regardless of
his therapist.
detonators or rain clouds. Regardless of detonators or rain clouds, the two twins had come to an unspoken agreement. They needed to figure out what the boy was hiding. Whatever he was being so secretive about. Whatever was keeping locked in his room, muttering to himself late into the night. It had to do with the reason he was treating his family like broken glass. He was always dancing around them, avoiding the casual touches Wilbur offered his way, dodging Techno's stilted attempts at affection with every hurried exit out of the living room or kitchen. Wilbur didn't have to pretend it didn't hurt, because it did. It was a needle weaseled in between the slots of his rib cage. It was someone ripping his diaphragm out from under his lungs.
Oof.
It was painful, and it hurt.
Sorry.
And he knew Techno felt the same.
Cough, cough.
Even if his brother remained ever stoic and stubborn, refusing to share more than a hesitant glance with his twin and shrug in feigned indifference. He knew it from the way that grad student would lean haltingly towards the blonde, as if to reach out, as if to swallow him in a hug and never let go. Techno never was good at this whole affection thing. He always loved too little or too much. Him and Wilbur were the same in that way. And so, when Tommy had approached him in faded PJs that had once been Techno's robotic shirt and Wilbur's flannel bottoms, asking for Wilbur to drive him at 9 p.m. to that cutesy coffee shop without explaining why, well, Wilbur had already known what he was going to say. It was easy to fall into this act of Big Brother he had always been perfecting for so long, to ruffle Tommy's hair Tommy's hair and tease and say, "Of course, anything for you, Tom," without hesitating. Because he had spent 8 years being Tommy's sole confidant. And even if it had been 8 years, since that might have been true, he still knew his role perfectly. Now, gripped tight on the steering wheel of his father's old SUV with an almost stranger in the passenger seat, Wilbur was struck with the realization that this bomb may explode in his face, and he'd be absolutely helpless in avoiding the fallout. But it'd be fine. Yeah, sure. Tommy was an enigma, and sure, Wilbur was already on pins and needles, about to bond with a little brother he hadn't seen in 7 years or so. But at the end of the day, he was just another moody teen. What real harm could he do?
He's just a moody
A lot,
teen.
actually. He winced. A lot, actually. He winced. Wilbur knew better than anyone that a moody teen was just seconds away from total annihilation at any given time. A lot of fucking damage. Oh shit, we're not getting out of this car alive. Okay, so maybe this was a terrible idea. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles turning to bone yellow white.
You alright there, big man?
Every time I hear
Tommy's
that.
voice snapped him out of his mini breakdown, and Wilbur forced himself to shoot his younger brother a reassuring smile. From the way Tommy winced, scooting closer to the car door as if ready to make a run for it. It was less reassuring and more maniacal. Wilbur cleared his throat, flexing his fingers on the leather steering wheel. "I'm fine. I'm good. Just, getting used to the old thing. Haven't driven this car in years, Last time I did, I was 16 and crashed into a tree. Haha."
Can I pick up from here?
Yeah.
Silence!
I
Silence!
had to take a drink of water anyways.
Yeah. Silence. Tommy stared at him, face slack, as he clearly tried to find an acceptable response to the equivalent of word vomit that roughly translated to, "Hey, I'm a horrible driver who regularly gets into car accidents. Hope this goes well." Wilbur cringed. If there's a god out there, he silently pleaded to the cotton ceiling of his old Ford, "Please just strike me dead."
There is no God.
Wilbur squeezed his eyes shut, forehead against the wheel. He knew his face was burning red in agonizing embarrassment. "Please, that's you."
Please put the address on the phone.
Right, got it. The two sat quietly as Tommy fiddled with the GPS, hooking his phone to the aux cord, which was rigged up with about 4 different adapters just to get the old thing to do any of the basic modern functions that everyone sans Phil was reliant on. Christ, this car has to be just as old as Dad, and Lord only knew how old that relic was. Called him old. Called him a boomer.
Old man.
Old man. And Wilbur slowly eased himself back into the art of driving in SoCal. They're in South California in this fic? Damn.
Cali.
SoCal after dark. Back in London, he had used public transit more than he drove, and the city was delightfully free of freeways. Now he would be toe-to-toe with his old enemy. The I-5. This old enemy. The I-5.
1 to 5.
Ready?
He asked, and next to him Tommy loosened a sigh, hand itching for the safety handle of the roof of the car, tugging anxiously at his seatbelt. The teen gave a battle-weary nod, and Wilbur sighed.
Okay, let's rock and roll.
Wilbur stepped on the gas and the car lurched into action. Brrr. They almost got into an accident pulling out of the driveway. That was the first close call.
Jesus.
Near crashes and freeway shenanigans aside, the drive to Kanoko's was deceptively pleasant. Tommy was a pretty good passenger, courteously keeping an eye out for car switching lanes, and reminding Wilbur that when a turn or an exit was ahead, which was much more helpful than Wilbur would ever admit, because fuck driving on the 5 was a nightmare. And he played some pretty decent music, too. While Wilbur didn't know what a majority of teens were listening to nowadays, he had an inkling that Tommy's music taste was a bit above average, if he was being gracious. Amongst the countless Brockhampton and the Weekend tracks were specks of gold. Leon La Lahavas, Wolfpeck, Jack Stauber, and was that Chance the Rapper? And Wilbur found himself enjoying the electric rhythms his brother queued up as they cruised down the highway, road lights blurring the inky sky. It was nice, casual. He hadn't felt this in a while. The easy companionship that came with brothers. Hadn't sat in a car listening to music with Tommy since. The last time he felt this comfortable, this warm, with his little brother was a sleepy car ride with auto heart ringing in his ears, his head upon a window pane and eyes closed shut. But still, he could feel his brother next to him, the tug of the white earphone cord as the car jolted, as Tommy shifted in his seat and leaned closer to Wilbur to give the wire more slack. At the time, it had felt like a reassurance, a promise, that everything would end up all right. It had felt like they were going to be okay again, and he had fallen asleep, blissful and full of hope, a twitching smile on his lips. Well, it had been a long time coming. At least this time he was fully awake. Do you want to pick up narration here? Either Mads or Dravy, if you want.
Yeah. But the next line is Tommy.
I know. I'm just narration.
Mads can go. I'll do it again later.
Okay.
Okay.
Turn here. We're about 2-ish minutes away. Not miles. Or turn here. We're about 2-ish minutes away.
All right. Cool. Wilbur hummed, flicking on his turn signal. There was the sharp ding of a notification popping on Tommy's phone, and the boy groaned, reaching to answer it. Wilbur's eyes shifted briefly from the road to see his brother frowning, chewing his lips in thought as he hurriedly typed a reply. That the mystery friend you're meeting? Your drug dealer? Your secret girlfriend? He smiled when the kid barked out a laugh.
Yeah, right. It's just...
Tommy broke off sharply, as if catching whatever was about to fly off his tongue with the thin edge of his teeth. Wilbur narrowed his eyes, but said nothing, as the boy considered his next words.
Just a friend. He's getting all pissy at me because apparently he wanted me there 50 minutes early. Fucking dickhead, man.
Wilbur let a strange laugh, trying to brush away the tension that rose alongside his suspicion. He'd hoped that whoever his brother was meeting wasn't bad news. If this mystery man was a drug dealer, Dad would never let Wilbur live this down. Still, more alarming was the fact that Tommy, his older partner in crime, his little brother who always wanted to show Wilbur his newest bit of mischief, was refusing to tell Wilbur anything. Well, you can tell him we're pulling into the parking lot now, he huffed, sliding into a parking spot, before he had gone to turn off the engine and pull out his key. Tommy was unbuckling his seatbelt, excitedly forcing the door open and hopping out of the car, eyes pinned on his phone as he texted rapidly with the mystery man on the other side of the screen. Wilbur cringed at the loud slam of the car door and quietly slid out of the driver's seat, feet hitting the tarmac. At the sound of Wilbur's door huffing closed, Tommy spun abruptly on his heel, blue eyes wide. Wilbur rose a single eyebrow, baffled as his brother began to anxiously look around, a bashful hand coming up to scratch the back of his neck. What are you so nervous about?
Oh, nothing, just...
Tommy's eyes darted down to his phone and back up to Wilbur, his features twisting into a grimace. There was a breath, in which Wilbur could practically hear the gears of the teen's head clunking softly, in which Tommy looked like a man about to slaughter a puppy, before the teen steeled himself and set his lips in a determined frown.
Will, could you stay in the car?
Wilbur blinked. What? What?
Look, it's not personal, I just want to hang out with my friends alone, so...
No, nuh-uh, no way. I did not drive you out here at 9 night just so you can tell me to wait in the car. Wilbur shook his head adamantly and arms crossed in front of his chest. In front of him, Tommy at least had the decency to look a bit guilty. A sneer began to make its way across the elder's face. Do you think I'm an idiot? You know what the teens get up to. I'm not going to be responsible for letting my little brother get kidnapped in a coffee shop by a random ass man, that would kill me.
Come on, Will, please.
Tommy groaned. All of a sudden, he was reminded of the afternoon spent trying to ignore a 7-year-old Tommy as he pestered his older brother to take him out to an R-rated movie.
I promise it's nothing bad or nefarious. It's just a little get-together with a few friends and...
Oh, so there's more than just one person you're meeting now. Tommy, man, you can't. Wilbur huffed a frustrated sigh, hands twitching as he fought the urge to tug at his earlobes, an anxious habit he'd developed as a child when he was unable to break. You can't just hang out with some people none of us know in the middle of the night. It's not safe. So I'm gonna go in there with you, and I'm gonna meet those friends of yours.
Dude, I promise it's safe. I promise. It's just Kanoko's. The people who go there couldn't even hurt a fly. You know that.
Tommy argued, fists clenched at his sides, and Wilbur could see the brewing of that stormy, explosive anger that he and Techno had been oh so afraid of. The teen in front of him pulled his lips back into a snarl. Mayday! A small, dry voice in him crowed, sticky with the mischief of a child. Mayday! Maybe this is a good time to backpedal? Wilbur glanced back at the coffee shop. The windows had their blinds drawn, but even the plastic white slits he could see the soft pulse of ambient lighting, greens and blues, and everything that whispered safe. Faintly, there was a putter of cafe house jazz lilting out its open door, welcoming and benign. It was true. Kinoko's was probably the least threatening place on Earth, but it wasn't the actual building Wilbur was nervous about. It was whoever lay inside, whoever Tommy wanted to hide from him. Wilbur screwed up his face. He hated having to be a buzzkill. Look, he finally offered, giving Tommy an apologetic smile, though it did little to tame the growing look of fury upon his brother's face. I still can't let you go in by yourself. But how about this? We both go in, I stay for a few minutes to scope out the vibe, and then, if I feel comfortable with you being there, I'll hang out in the parking lot until you're done. Okay? That sound good? Tommy pursed his lips, glancing back at the entrance of the docile little cafe, eyes softening as the winking fairy lights shimmered in the reflection of his blue irises, looking as though a dewdrop small star had settled upon his pupils. Wilbur's fingers twitched, and in the hollows of his inner ear, he could hear a chorus begin to rise. Lyrics unfolding unbeknownst to anyone but him, a new symphony in the quiet hum of cars and jazz, and nighttime fading into almost nothing.
Fine.
Tommy hissed, and Wilbur snapped out of his reverie by the sheer relief of placating his temperamental younger brother. Thank fuck. I do not have the energy to deal with a tantrum right now. He tried to shoot a friendly grin Tommy's way, but the boy had already turned on his heel and began stalking towards Kanoko's front porch, hands shoved in his sweatshirt pocket, and hood up. Wilbur's lips twitched downwards.
We're almost done. Whoa! I'm cleaning my glasses. I can see again. Oh my god.
I can see clearly now.
The rain is gone. Dun 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 dun. Again with the music stuff. Stretchy.
Wilbur's always finding the music in any situation.
Mm-hmm. Dreve, do you wanna pick up from here?
Sure. Okay.
I'm gonna have to argue with myself here in a moment.
Yay!
That's great. Okay. Truthfully, Tommy was fucked. That in itself wasn't unusual. His luck was pretty shit on a good day, but really today was being horrible. It had started with him waking up at noon to a barrage of text from Rambo. Boo. Rambu about an AP Calic summer assignment neither of them had known about, and looked like it was about to end with him embarrassing himself on stage in front of not only a group of poets that he very much respected and craved validation from, but his older goddamn brother. Great. He'd like to see how Tubbo would find the silver lining in this one. At least you can get some good tea. His little Jimmy Cricket of a friend hummed to no one but him, and Tommy once again cursed his overactive imagination for making his consciousness echo the voice of his lovably annoying best friend. Despite the utterly terrible vibes his day was giving off, he still felt the
The vibes? Rancid.
Vibes? Awful.
Vibes? Awful.
He still felt the characteristic buzz of excitement that came with every sharp chime of Kinoko's door opening as he stepped into his safe space, the bubbling euphoria at being in a space meant for creating, even if it was a bit dim and blurry with nerves. Glancing around, he noticed that Carl had completely decked the place out for today's open mic. Ambient lighting was scattered across the room in the form of paper lanterns hung from the ceilings, casting green and blue shadows upon the wooden floor, and the beams supporting the ceiling dotted with glow in the dark stars, and had been decorated with streamers. The thin scraps of paper zigzagging across the cozy shop until it felt as though a star-embroidered cocoon was spun. As Easy Mike was twisted around...
Music.
Oh. An easy music twisted around the room, unimposing and
lackadaisical.
Lackadaisical. What does that mean?
That's a good question.
It basically means like haphazardly, basically, but in a more playful, upbeat way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Tommy finally felt the trickling of eager nervousness that had been simmering underneath his skin for so long. He felt ready. And there, sitting in a semicircle around an unamusing mic and music stand, were the poets even as they casually lounged in plastic chairs, chatting about movie theaters or baseball or summer flowers, or whatever it is poets pretended it isn't another synonym for a poem. Tommy could feel the universes they were on the brink of spinning, sparking warmth like a light bulb, bright and dazing. And just like that, he felt completely helpless, unprepared. Because he wanted it all. He wanted a way women with gauges was explaining to her bewildered friend the newest Star Wars spin-off. Wanted the way quiet kid in the corner, scribbling something feverishly on a napkin. One of the men in a forest green flannel was chatting up Carl, and how the barista just handed him his coffee with an anxious giggle. Flustered and trying to be polite, wanted the couple murmuring to each other about unread books and last-minute geniuses. One of the poems and the music in the air killed darlings, and wanted the universes just waiting to burst into existence. He wanted to be a poet.
Finally!
I just want to say before you continue, this fic always made me think of how could I forget the name of it? But there's a movie that was a bit older that I can't remember the name of, but it makes me think of that. What was it called? Fuck! It was the.
What's it about?
It's the.
Explain it.
It's like a.
Explain yourself.
It's about like a prestigious all boys school.
Oh no.
Dead Poets Society.
Yes, it makes me think of Dead Poets Society.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great name.
Yeah. Where they're all just vibing, and then they have English class with a cool professor that's really into poetry.
And then they die.
And that's the plot of the movie. Yeah. It makes me think of that.
Okay.
Anyways, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Finally, Big Man Tommy. I was wondering when you'd show up.
A holler drew him away from his pondering. He found himself squished into the side of no other than Dream. The man was practically practically vibing in place as he grinned at Tommy, hands flapping around wildly as he launched into a playful rant about Tommy being a bad teammate, who didn't think about how his tardiness would impact the morale of the team. Really, how rude of him, safe to say. The nerves were getting to the older blonde too. Love exploded out of Tommy, and he opened his mouth to retort something equally as witty and obnoxious as his teammate before. Someone coughed pointedly behind him. Oh, great.
Well, if it isn't the old speedster.
Wilbur jeered, arms spread wide as he sauntered closer to the two. Tommy could feel Dreams' arms stiffen from where it was wrapped around his shoulder, and the man's green eyes narrowed as Wilbur's neared.
Never thought I'd see your ugly mug again.
Tommy blinked. Wait, these fuckers know each other?
The plan was I'd never see yours either.
Dreams snarked and tightened his grip around Tommy, tilting his head.
Last I heard, you went away to England and started a little band. How's that going for you?
And apparently, they had a grudge. Greg Univert versus Tommy Watson, 1-0. Wilbur scowled.
Well, this doesn't look like a crack den. I'm still not impressed by the company you keep, Tommy. Definitely not leaving you now. Not with this bastard.
Tommy's head snapped over to glare at Wilbur, and his mouth felt slack in shock.
Oi, you fucker, you can't just...
Is this guy bothering you, Tommy?
Oh, sorry.
That was always a funny line to me. I'm sorry. Is this guy bothering you, Tommy?
This guy bothering me. That's great. Dream grit out, and Tommy gawked. What was with these two?
What? No.
I should be asking you that, asshole.
Wilbur's snarl was bordering on feral, and his eyes looked like they could cut glass. Sorry, I gotta...
Since you are, holding on to my little brother.
Can I pick up from here?
Yeah.
Tommy stopped breathing, and it was as if the room had fallen away. Distantly, he could hear the music wind down as the MC for the night approached the mic. Dream's grip on his shoulder slackened, and the man's eyes flashed in recognition before cool realization settled in the green irises, sending a shiver up Tommy's spine. He didn't like that look. That was Dream's I'm gonna attempt the universe and you'll all regret it look. Tommy felt his heart sputter, an uncontrollable terror gripping the racing muscles until he thought it'd be squeezed to death. Oh God, what if he hates me? Why would he hate me? I didn't do anything, did I? Oh God, what if Wilbur hates me?
I see,
was all the man said, and Tommy felt his heart drop to the floor. He was expecting fury, acid, and razor-sharp words, not whatever that was. Dream didn't do vague. Everything was purposeful and well thought out, and his sentences were never halting. They were sprawling, words like staircases leading to some grandiose point. As he got to know the man, he realized Dream didn't do nice. He didn't do non-confrontational. He was Dream, and Dream knew he owned language. Alright, so Tommy was royally, irreversibly fucked. This day couldn't be any worse.
Great,
Wilbur said, seemingly undeterred by the strange behavior of the other man.
Now kindly hands off.
Tommy ignored his older brother, turning to Dream, eyes blown wide in confusion and apprehension. The man had physically distanced himself from the teen. Arms hung limp at his sides as his eyes bore holes into Wilbur's, as if he didn't want to get near Tommy now that he knew of the two brothers' relation. It hurt more than Tommy was willing to admit. Dream, wait,
It's fine,
he said, and they both knew that it wasn't, really.
Listen, meet me outside during the break so we can run it over one last time. Alone.
Yeah, sure, but...
Tommy, really, it's fine.
And that was a dismissal, one that set Tommy's stomach into flips and had the creature in his throat chasing after its own tail, whimpering. This was wrong. It wasn't meant to go this way. They were supposed to debut their poem to the eager ears of the audience and allow their words to flourish. Tommy was supposed to flourish. He was supposed to prove once and for all that Dream that he was a member of this team, just as important as Ponk or Foolish. He was supposed to be a poet tonight. Of course Wilbur had to ruin it. Of course. What else could he have expected from his moody brother? His moody, absent older brother who was reckless with others' feelings, who had spent his adolescence yelling at their father and sending Tommy cowering to his room. Of course, Tommy had been naive to think that 8 years would change anything. The anger was not quick. It was not blinding or cutting or stopped his heart. The thing in his throat growled forebodingly. This anger was a candle finally chewed away at the last bones of its wick. This anger was tea gone cold. This was the batteries of an old Game Boy bleeding into nothing, with its cracked screen finally turning black and dead. This anger was a poem, and he was going to perform the hell of it on stage.
Yay!
Yay!
Hooray!
Woo!
Did I do the beginning of this next one?
Yeah. This is a Wilbur.
Okay.
Wilbur POV, so.
Wilbur POV.
Wilbur POV!
Okay. Wilbur hadn't known what to expect, but an open mic was definitely not it. Where Wilbur was imagining some late-night bathing circle born out of teenage rebellion, Tommy had apparently made himself at home in the middle of a poetry reading. There was no alcohol, no loud music, none of the fixtures of a high schooler's summer that Wilbur had been more than acquainted with. This was more than tame. It was outright boring. Person after person had got up and read their work. And while some of it was quite nice and Wilbur appreciated the artwork, how could he not? He was a musician, a lyricist. He knew more about poetry than probably the kid who dragged him to this thing did. Wilbur was unable to concentrate on the flowery language still spewing in the unadulterated rage of chancing upon Dream. No, not chancing. The slimy asshole apparently knew his little brother and was friends with him and was the mystery man his brother had been texting the entire night. I'll rip limb from limb. I'll make him regret the day he was ever born. And his little parkour skills and his stupid face. And he didn't really know what he was swearing. Not really. But he knew it was malicious and violent. Because all of the his little brother could have befriended, of course it had to be Dream.
Of course it had to be Dream.
Fucking Dream.
Fucking Dream.
What's your response to that? Clown.
Yep.
Nikki would be laughing her ass off right now. Eric, too. Admittedly, his grudge against Dream was one of petty college drama, and all that came with young adulthood. But it was still a valid grudge nonetheless. Hell, he'd broken Fundy's heart, basically his second little brother, and that in and of itself was unforgivable.
Another
But
reference to
he
the
was going
Dream
to
SMP, but also like other shit too, because that was really weird.
That was really weird.
The Fundy had a whole Dream romance arc, but like
Fundy's baby.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but like it was kind of canonical, but not really canonical. And then like they did a wedding outside of the Dream.
It was a
SMP.
one-side canon.
Yeah,
It was one-side canon.
they did a wedding outside the Dream SMP, and it ended with it being crashed by George.
I think you told me about that before.
It was a time.
That sounds familiar because I remember
Very
hearing
funny
something
videos.
like that. Wasn't there an entire thing? I don't remember if this was the Dream SMP or not. Wasn't there an entire thing where like someone died and then they like planted like TNT everywhere and like attacked them and blew it up?
Are you talking about Wilbur Soot?
That's just regular old Dream SMP lore.
Yeah, you're talking about Wilbur Soot. Yeah.
I saw a clip of that.
Anywho.
And I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I think
But he was going to show face and tough it out.
He was pushing
There was
it.
no way that idiot with his stupid lime-colored hoodie would scare him away from his little brother and his stupid poetry reading. So he sat in a plastic foldable chair next to Tommy and watched act after act, scowl cemented on his features and eyes gleaming with what he was sure was unbridled hatred. Every now and then, his eyes would flicker over to his brother, hoping to see some of the teen's thoughts played upon his face, because his brother had always been so expressive, so easy to read. And now it was as as if he was a stone wall. But Tommy's gaze was determinedly pinned on the spotlit microphone, unflinching. Whatever he had done with Wilbur outside in those few minutes during intermission, he had returned with a glint in his eye and a hard set to his mouth, looking for all the world like a man who'd seen war. It had been jarring, that was for sure, but slowly he was getting used to seeing the frown on his brother's sunny face more than a smile. His stomach turned at the realization. And so the open mic continued. The MCs for the night, the bespectacled barista, and the man with a white headband that took every opportunity to flirt with his co-host, introducing each new poet to the booming applause of the audience. Each poem heavy with metaphors and responding snaps as the poets hummed and wowed at the piece. Wilbur didn't exactly understand what was going on, because when did they know to snap? Was there a code or something? A signal? And why did they keep yelling, "Don't be nice"? Did they want them to be mean to each other? But he found himself easing into the atmosphere, humming along with the audience and smiling at every well-placed joke. It was going well. Better than expected. It was nice.
Aww.
And then Tommy rose from his seat.
Oh.
At first, Wilbur had been confused. Had motioned urgently for his brother to look back down because, dude, you're drawing attention to yourself. But the teenager had just hastily made his way to the front room where the microphone was propped, ears flushed red and hands fidgeting. Wilbur didn't understand. Why was he going up there? They were in the middle of a poetry reading. There was no reason. He looked towards the front, and there, lurking in the shadow of a support beam, was none other than Dream. The man motioned excitedly for Tommy to join him. Wilbur's eyes narrowed. What was Dream doing? Was he trying to draw his baby brother into some mischievous plot? He inched forward in his seat, buzzing with adrenaline, as he watched Tommy slide next to Dream's side, perfectly slotted by his left shoulder, as if he'd been there 1,000 times before, as if he was meant to be there. His stomach rolled.
I believe you were Carl.
Were you Carl? I was Carl?
I think you were Carl.
Oh. Okay.
Carl.
Epic!
Carl.
Let's give our last performers a hand. Carl cheered, and the audience broke into thunderous applause, despite the fact that this was probably the 10th or so poem that had been read. The crowd's energy had carried out through the night, each performance being met with hollers of awe and congratulations, each poet bashfully tiptoeing to their seat to the flailing hands of their friends and good-natured pats on the back from strangers. And next to him, the other MC jumped up and down as if unable to control his excitement. Carl gave a half glare to his partner. All right. Well, I would normally announce the next performer. Sapnap looks like he's about to explode if I don't let him do it. Hey, no more fireworks, please. I can't pay more hospital bills. There was a laughter like that, abrupt in only the way friends with an inside joke could be. Wilbur shifted in his seat, forcing a strained smile as Carl continued,
yes.
Exasperated. But since I'm such a nice and loving boyfriend, I guess I could let him do the honors.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Oh, Sapnap said with a wink, and the audience broke into teasing coos and wolf whistles, leaving Carl flushed, swatting playfully at the crowd. Sapnap grabbed a hold of the mic. A grin split across his face as he sucked in a breath, and with practically the entirety of his being shouted,
"Who's ready for some more poetry?
Bitch!" Sorry.
Bitch.
Wilbur winced as the crowd cheered loudly. The group of 30 surprisingly rambunctious for some poets. For some poets. He always thought these types of folk as shut-ins, as worn espresso drinkers smoking a cigarette in the back in a black turtleneck, lamenting about the weather and all the world's bullshit. Apparently, these poets were loudmouth, devil-may-care hippies who wore earrings and laughed at horrible puns. Apparently, no one else thought that a bit
Concerning.
concerning.
Yes.
Concerning.
Yeah. Concerning. Yes.
On his right,
Either one.
Yeah. On his right, a member of the crowd had scooted forward in her seat, feet practically thumping upon the floor in excitement.
You do this, Dreamy. This random person in the crowd.
I haven't seen Dream do a duo in ages. This is going to be good. I can feel it.
She whispered to him, glittering eyes never leaving the front where Sapnap was hyping up the crowd. I'm sorry? I'm not really sure what you mean. What's a duo? Wilbur tried to keep his tone polite and pleasantly curious, but he could hear the shake of worry underlying every syllable. He cleared his throat self-consciously, and the woman next to him gave him a kind smile.
Yeah.
Oh, first time? Well, duo is a group piece with only 2 people. Dream usually does solo poems. I haven't seen him do a poem in like 2 seasons. I can't wait to see who's working with him. The guy's super picky.
She prattled on, hands snapping absent-mindedly as Sapnap and Carl began to introduce the next poets while subliminally advertising the cafe, to the delight of the crowd that chuckled at their antics. Wilbur, however, was not amused. First of all, Dream wrote poetry? Sure, he knew the guy was affiliated with the arts. They had met in his freshman year of dramatic theater in college, after all. The kid had a natural talent for acting he seemed hell-bent on throwing down the drain, much to Wilbur's ever-growing jealousy and jargon. But there was no way in hell this man could possibly be a poet. He was loud and obnoxious and a jerk. This has to be a prank. Tommy and him have to be pulling on my...
We had to get a second mic out for this crew. I'm so pumped to welcome to our stage our final poets of the night.
The woman next to him began to bounce in her seat excitedly. Wilbur was praying to every god that existed that this was all some joke.
Dreamin' Tommy Watson! Ooh!
The little crowd rocked the house with their cheers, screaming as the man, clothed in eye-blindingly neon hoodie with fingerless black gloves, walked up to a mic. Next to him stood a boy with a signature red hoodie and a shock of blonde hair. The 2 adjusted their mics to the rowdy heckles of "Mic work" before they both took out their phones, nervously fidgeting as they waited for the crowd to die down. "Hello there, I'm Dream," the audience thundered, and the man gave a quiet wheeze. Beside him, Wilbur's baby brother anxiously bounced onto the balls of his feet.
And I'm Big Man Tommy, and this is our group poem entitled...
He glanced off to Dream, and at first Wilbur thought he was looking for permission to continue, a thought that had him practically boiling over in rage, before he realized with a sickening lurch that he was looking for reassurance. The teen was looking at Dream like the man hung the moon, and Dream looked at Tommy as if he was willing to tear it back down for the teen. Something dark and possessive tumbled in his gut, something he had worked so hard to keep down. He was supposed to be over this. He had gone to therapy and did his shadow work, and he should be done with this. But he felt it gnaw at the linings of his stomach. He was going to kill Dream.
Again, canonical therapy.
Dream gave Tommy...
Yes.
Dream gave Tommy a quick nod, a small incline of his head that meant nothing and everything at the same time. And yes, in some way it was a permission, an allowance for Tommy to take up the space Dream was cultivating for him to start whatever debacle the 2 had concocted, but it was also a comfort. In that little movement, Dream had said so much. I'm here. He had told Wilbur's little brother, I've got you. We can do this. And he knew that nod so well, because it had been the one he'd give Tommy on nighttime trips to the bathroom when the toddler was still too afraid to go by himself. It was the nod he gave Tommy. It was the nod he gave when Tommy came home crying about homework and begged Wilbur for help. He knew what it meant. because for so many years, he had been the only one that Tommy had needed. Tommy sucked in a harsh breath before a smile split across his face, bright enough to put the spotlight fallen upon him to shame.
And this is our group poem entitled Punchline.
And Wilbur realized too late that the bomb had already detonated long before he had ever touched down in the U.S.
Well, there we go.
Yes! Yes!
We did it! I like the callback to the beginning of the chapter. He's like, oh shit, oh fuck, oh shit, oh fuck. Monkey breathing.
Yeah.
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 Only 28 comments this chapter?
How dare.
How dare.
Welp, clap.
Well, here we go.
That will be the stream for today.
Yep, that's the stream for today. Next time, we'll get to reading chapter 7, which, where they perform their poem together. Which is really great. Yeah.
We'll have to figure that out beforehand. Like when we're in the call before, we'll have to be like, okay, who's doing what at what time? Because I want it to be seamless, man.
Yeah.
It's gotta be.
As good as we can. No pressure, okay? We're not professionals, but
Yeah,
we try.
no pressure, but...
Yeah.
But I want this one to be at least a little more gussied up.
Yeah.
So that we can, flow a little bit better. So it doesn't get as confusing. Because it probably will get really confusing.
But yeah. So next time we're gonna read that. Thank you for tuning in, or getting this far, if you're at this point.
Yes.
This is me signing off. Thank you for coming, Mads.
Yes, of course.
Yes. Thank you for coming as well, Dravy. Attempting to do the readings. And that's it. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.